A female inmate's pepper sprayed while completely naked in her cell. Another comes close to being assaulted after a male inmate made his way into her section. Believe it or not, these aren't the worst cases we're about to show you. So, let's take a look at the most disturbing female prison moments ever caught on camera. Starting with this inmate who attempted a daring escape only to deliver herself back to the police in the most ridiculous way imaginable. We're talking about Jessica Boomershine, and this is a laughable moment where she fell through a ceiling while trying to escape from prison.
And we have new information on a suspect in the kidnapping and assault of an elderly Miamisburg man. Jessica Boomershine pleaded guilty to several charges, including kidnapping, aggravated robbery, and felonious assault.
Before her failed prison escape, 42-year-old Jessica Boomershine and an accomplice were arrested and charged for kidnapping and robbing an 85-year-old man that they met at the Miamisburg casino. Then 2 days later, while Boomershine's locked up at Montgomery County Jail in Dayton waiting for a court appearance, she tried to pull off a bold escape. Surveillance caught her dragging a chair over to a kiosk in the jail's waiting area. She stood on the seat, staring up at the ceiling as she planned her next move. Then she stepped down for a moment, brings a bigger chair for more stability, climbs up, and then begins removing the ceiling tiles. Inmates nearby cheered her on, but it didn't take long for things to fall apart, literally. Debris came crashing down, and before anyone could react, Boomershine fell straight through the ceiling and landed headfirst in a trash can, which then tipped over. COs would rush to the scene and quickly pull her out. And because of this botched, very foolish prison escape attempt, Boomershine is now facing even more charges, including escape and destruction of property. And thankfully, she wasn't harmed. But the same can't be said about this next female detainee, who got viciously slammed to the ground by a male officer.
Well, we start with that new body camera video of an officer slamming a handcuffed woman to the ground while inside the Ormond Beach Police Department.
The video that we're seeing for the first time appears to show the woman go back and forth with officers, but then it took a turn. Take a look.
January 2025. 47-year-old Shannon McCree is arrested by Ormond Beach officials after she crashed her car while intoxicated. And she was handcuffed and taken to the station. However, she kept insulting Officer Ryan Cannon and another officer as they prepared a breathalyzer test.
Why? Have a seat on the mat. Why?
Have a seat, please.
Why? Sit on the mat. Sit. Why? Because nothing. Because you have nothing. Something to you. Because you have nothing.
Keeping in mind that according to police reports, Shauna was intoxicated. However, she kept shouting that she was okay and had done nothing wrong, all while standing up and walking around, despite being repeatedly instructed to sit down.
You don't give a shit about normal people. You guys don't give a about anyone. You guys don't give a about anybody.
But the real drama started after the breathalyzer test, because right after taking it, she hurls insults at Officer Cannon. He gets in his feelings and does this. The impact left McCree with a deep bloody gash on her forehead that required at least 7 stitches. The injury was pretty severe, leaving a scar for life. Following the release of the video by Ormond Beach PD, Cannon resigned from the force on January 31st and turned himself into the Volusia County Branch Jail. He's since been charged with felony battery, a third-degree felony, and the police department had to issue a public apology while condemning his actions. But unlike Shauna, who's physically assaulted by an officer, this next lady, Chantel Glass, was pepper sprayed, slightly waterboarded, and almost stripped naked by a group of officers, and all because of the dumbest reason you can possibly think of.
And now to new video of what this woman's attorney called a ritual of torture. It's surveillance footage inside of the embattled Cuyahoga County Jail. The attorney says it shows 2 corrections officers assaulting a woman last summer while she was in a restraint chair.
July 16, 2018, Chantel Glass, a mother of 3, was taken into custody at the Cuyahoga County Jail over an old out-of-state misdemeanor traffic warrant. Just 2 days later, she's released after New Jersey authorities confirmed they had no intention of extracting her for that outdated charge. But during her brief 48 hours behind bars in Cuyahoga County, Glass endured a level of violence and abuse so unimaginable it would be shocking in a cartel setting. And the reason? She simply asked to make a phone call. As you can see here, Chantel's being escorted to a restraint chair by officers identified as Robert Marsh and Idris Fareed Clark after being removed from her cell for repeatedly asking to make a phone call. She didn't resist or put up a fight, but while she was strapped in, Officer Marsh punched her right in the head. And then when she reacted to the blow, Officer Clark was holding a can of pepper spray and grabbed her by the hair and just unleashed the entire can right into her face from 6 inches away, ensuring she couldn't turn her head nor shield her eyes. Many other COs were present during this incident but stood by and just watched as Chantel struggled in pain, offering no assistance. Believe it or not though, things get worse from here. After being pepper sprayed, officers delayed starting the decontamination process. They would ignore her repeated pleas, even after she said that she had asthma and was struggling to breathe. And when they finally did respond, they failed to clean the pepper spray residue off her body properly, leaving her suffering from its effects far longer than necessary.
Please, let's try.
All right, keep your head still. If you gotta spit down.
Plus, COs wheeled her into the co-ed infirmary, making no effort to cover her exposed body, while others would laugh at her as she sat there suffering from the pain.
Next hour.
Can I rub my eyes?
She's gonna take care of that.
I can't breathe, man. Man, please, I can't breathe. I need some water.
After that, they left her in isolation for hours without a chance to clean up, making her suffer from the chemical burns for 2 days. The COs responsible were charged with multiple offenses, suspended without pay, and Chantel later received a $300,000 settlement. Now, some might say that she got justice in the end, but this case exposed how corrupted Cuyahoga County can be, because after that incident went viral, another surveillance video surfaced, this time showing a different group of officers assaulting an inmate and unlawfully using pepper spray again on her. But in their case, they went the extra mile to strip her naked first.
Full precautions?
Yes.
Take your stuff off. Take your clothes off.
That was Cuyahoga County Jail Supervisor Brendan Johnson, just moments before he pepper sprayed a female inmate for absolutely no reason. Now, it's true the inmate wasn't responding to instructions, but as you'll hear in this next clip, Johnson was never in any danger whatsoever.
You're gonna help me by me getting naked? Is that what you want to see? You want to see my tits?
Everything.
Making pedophiles happy. Making pedophiles happy.
Johnson tackled her to the ground, directly violating protocol. But what came next was beyond shocking.
Sit back.
Oh, careful, man.
Sit back.
Oh, god damn it, dude.
Back. Give me the...
Here you go. Amphetamine, barbiturates, PCP, opiates, heroin, alcohol.
He's pepper spraying her while she's naked, didn't decontaminate her in a timely manner, and failed to cover her body while 9 male officers stood by and watched. Like, we don't know about you, but this feels like less of a protocol and more of straight-up humiliation. The county's Human Resource Office called Officer Johnson's actions abusive and unnecessary, leading to his termination. Sometimes just firing these officers doesn't make up for the damage they caused. Take, for example, the case of 22-year-old Anacia Smith, who was attacked by 9 prison guards, all because she made a simple request.
The Harris County Jail is facing a federal lawsuit after an alleged assault by detention officers on an inmate. The confrontation was caught on camera.
As you can see here, these officers, including several ranking officials, violently assaulted Smith after she asked to be excused from voluntary cleaning duties due to exhaustion. They beat, kick, and punch her all over that one request, and the worst part, none of the officers were wearing their body cameras. If it weren't for prison CCTV, this brutal incident might have never come to light. Now, this happened back in 2023 at Harris County Jail, but now that jail's facing a federal lawsuit over the attack, and hopefully Anacia Smith gets the justice she deserves. Now, speaking of justice, some female detainees have been slipping out of detention with moves slick enough to rival Catwoman. Just take a look at this case involving 30-year-old Amber Gonzalez. Now, she's arrested at Beaumont Hotel for theft and possession of drug paraphernalia, and she's taken to the Waukesha PD, where surveillance shows her alone in a holding cell, using her phone. allegedly trying to coordinate bail and a ride home. But after a minute of texting, Gonzalez managed to wiggle out of her handcuffs, even though authorities claimed they'd been secured at the tightest setting. She frees herself, slips out of the holding cell without alerting any officer. However, the freedom didn't last long. She's captured an hour later, at the very same hotel where she was originally arrested. Can't make this up. This time she's found with a truck driver who had allegedly paid her for prostitution. I mean, that escape was pretty wild, sure, but things do take a much darker turn from here, because this next clip we have Malika Calhoun being escorted to a holding cell by 2 King County Sheriff's deputies, when her worst nightmare suddenly becomes reality. Calhoun's taken into custody as part of an auto theft investigation. While inside her cell, 31-year-old Officer Paul Sheen asked her to take off her shoes. Calhoun can be seen kicking one in his direction, and that's when Officer Sheen rushed into the cell, kicks this girl, slams her head into a corner wall before pulling her face first to the ground by her hair, and then he punched her from the side twice before taking her away. This guy was fired and charged with a misdemeanor for 4th-degree assault. But get this, after 2 mistrials, prosecutors dropped the case. Just like Calhoun, here's another officer, this time from Greenfield, Connecticut, violently throwing a woman in jail. That was Amanda Luke, a repeat drunk driver who led Greenfield police on a low-speed chase during the summer of 2013. She's arrested and brought in for booking, but later refused to follow orders to return to her cell. And when she placed her right hand on Officer Thomas Rozak's chest, he responded with excessive force, dragging her and violently shoving her into the cell, just as we see here. Amanda wouldn't suffer life-altering injuries from that incident, but Officer Rozak was charged with battery. However, he served no jail time and was only given 200 hours of community service. Like, what? Even more shocking though, he's now back on patrol. And maybe it's because we're so lenient with these officers that they just keep doing the same thing over and over, because in yet another video, we see a female inmate shoved so forcefully into her cell that she hits her head hard on a concrete bench. This was the devastating moment Cassandra Feuerstein was thrown into a holding cell with such aggression that she slammed her head and sustained multiple injuries around her eye. After realizing how badly she was hurt, officers eventually came back in to provide aid. Cassandra had been arrested for a DUI, and the officer involved here was Skokie police officer Michael Hart. Hart resigned shortly after the incident and later pled guilty to official misconduct. Meanwhile, Cassandra files her lawsuit against the county and ultimately receives an $875,000 settlement. Now let's move on to more disturbing moments, because these weren't the only COs caught on camera using excessive force. In this next case, Karen Lawrence was tased, stripped naked, and aggressively handled by 3 COs and 1 female CO.
More problems inside the Bullitt County Jail. A female inmate tased and stripped naked by jail employee.
On September 18, 2021, Karen Lawrence is arrested for speeding, reckless driving, and driving under the influence. Her blood alcohol level was almost twice the legal limit, and she's taken to Bullitt County Jail for booking. Lawrence insisted on her waiting for her lawyer before answering any questions. And despite officers finding nothing on her during a search, they still decided to place her in an orange jumpsuit. Lawrence passively resisted, but that's when 3 huge male officers tackled her, tased her, and began forcibly stripping her of her clothing, including her bra. A female officer joins in and removes her jeans, forces her into the jumpsuit. Lawrence is left completely naked in front of these male officers, even though there were several female COs present who could have handled this a lot differently. Now, after her release, Lawrence had filed a lawsuit against Bullitt County and was given $150,000, while the officers involved were just forced to resign. But in sharp contrast, the officers in this next case were only placed on administrative leave and then reinstated with full pay, following the aggravated use of force on a detainee named Becky Bem. Now, Becky's brought into Tazewell County Jail around midnight on October 17, 2008 for DUI. Now, for the next 5 hours, she endured what can only be described as sheer abuse at the hands of 3 officers. Security footage from her cell that night shows her being thrown headfirst in a concrete wall, and at another point punched in the face during a fight with Officers Bieber and Pyro. She was tased, shoved to the ground, and repeatedly beaten, actions many say blatantly violated established protocol. Yet, after reviewing the footage, all 3 officers are reinstated and cleared of any wrongdoing, despite then Tazewell County Sheriff Bob Houston publicly disagreeing with that decision. Moving on to this next case, an Arizona inmate named Justin Avery tried sexually assaulting a woman in broad daylight. Avery had been arrested on April 11, 2024 for sexually assaulting 5 women near Arizona State University's Tempe campus. Just days later, while awaiting a court appearance, a shocking jail video appears to show him slipping past an MCSO detention officer and approaching a woman who was asleep on the floor. This takes place in the Intake Transfer and Processing Facility in Phoenix. According to sheriff officials, Avery crawled along the ground before grabbing the woman and pulling down his pants to rape her. Court documents state that another woman sitting nearby began screaming, urging him to get off the victim, and that's when other officers came in to arrest him. In the same vein, 10 officers at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, went against every oath they'd sworn and unleashed brutal, calculated violence on many female inmates in this facility.
We begin with newly released video from the State Attorney General's office of the violent January 12th cell extractions at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women.
This is the state's only women's prison, and it has a long history of reported abuse, including both sexual and physical misconduct by staff. But then on January 11th, 2021, inmates were subjected to forced cell extractions, during which officers allegedly used excessive force, including pepper spray and physical assaults, leaving several women injured with concussions, scratches, and at least 1 orbital fracture. This inmate, for example, was forcefully dragged out of her cell by at least 7 officers from their tactical unit while her pants are falling off. And honestly, that's disgusting, man. But it wasn't even the worst of it. Here are a few more inmates who were subjected to excessive force that night.
Why is it a man ripping my clothes off? Why is you grabbing my titties? 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 Let's punch me all in my face! They punched me in my eye and doing nothing wrong. I'm bleeding. I'm hurt.
The attack was so chaotic and out of control that 31 officers were fired, several convicted, and the entire facility ended up being shut down. Yet some officers just never seemed to learn. But we'll circle back to that in a moment. Right now we have a set of cases where officers weren't the attackers but the ones under attack, because around 1 a.m. on June 7th, 2022, a 42-year-old inmate at Hillsborough County Detention Center named Bridget Harvey approached Deputy Lillian Jimenez, claiming that another inmate needed help in the bathroom. But as Jimenez went inside, Harvey suddenly came up from behind, just as we can hear in this clip, and tried to choke her using a pillowcase. Jimenez fought to break free, and thankfully a few nearby inmates stepped in and helped out. Jimenez survived that incident with only minor injuries. But as for Harvey, she's given aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer with a weapon, introduction of contraband into a detention facility, and 2 counts of escape from confinement. At the same time, we've got another disturbing clip, this one with a Milwaukee County CO being attacked out of nowhere on an otherwise ordinary Monday evening. The female inmate came at her like a ghost, completely unprovoked, launching into a full-blown assault. The officer struggled to get her to the ground, and backup quickly rushed in, with one officer deploying a stun gun to subdue the inmate. The officer walked away with a few scratches but was otherwise okay. As for the inmate, who was already locked up on a battery charge, has yet another battery charge to add to it. Now in this next clip, Tampa police officer Gregory Daminen was caught on camera literally dragging a woman into jail.
Miss Marshall, I'm gonna drag you out of this car.
I already know.
I don't want to.
Daminen was fired for violating multiple protocols, and honestly, who drags someone into jail like that? I mean, You'd think no one would, right? But some officers do exactly that, and in this next case, it gets even more brutal. Because in the case of Audrey West, she was assaulted by 3 Broward Sheriff COs, all because she asked for a tampon. You see, Audrey was a tourist from Texas who'd come down to Broward County for some relaxation. However, things take a turn when she's arrested for disorderly conduct. Now, while at the station, she simply asked for a tampon, but was denied. Frustrated, she directed a curse word at the CO, who was also agitated, and responded by violently dragging this poor woman into a room for a strip search. Knowing there's no cameras in here, the officer and a few colleagues physically assault her, leaving Audrey with a black eye and several scars on her body. And still in the Broward Sheriff's PD, 3 detention deputies were caught on camera physically assaulting Sarah Caputo after she refused to change into jail clothes. Now, Sarah was brought in on a DUI, and while in a holding cell, the deputies had told her to change. And when she refused in a non-violent way, one deputy pushed Sarah back, and then a whole squabble between the 4 of them broke out. Afterward, the sheriff defended his deputy's actions by saying,
"If I have to go back to law school and defend these women myself, I will do it. You don't get a free pass to strike, injure, hurt, or harm any of my deputies in this agency."
However, Florida State Attorney's Office had filed aggravated battery charges against all 3 deputies, identifying them as the initial aggressors in that incident.
I honestly didn't know why I was pushed into the elevator and then tased. I wasn't aggressive, I wasn't resisting, I was walking.
And that's Pittsburgh native Kimberly Andrews speaking about the abuse she endured at the hands of COs who used excessive force on her while she was inside Allegheny County Jail. Surveillance shows Kimberly, who was 20 years old at the time, being escorted by at least 7 officers into an elevator leading to the holding cells. This was after she was treated at the hospital and held in solitary confinement following multiple suicide attempts. But the COs don't seem to care about her condition, because what we see next is Kimberly getting violently shoved into the elevator, making her hit her head on a metal bar before she gets tased for absolutely no reason. And then she's dragged out and tased again before being strapped to a restraint chair for 8 straight hours. Similarly, here's another CO, Wayne Mayberry, struggling with a female inmate while attempting to get her back into her cell. Now, of course, using a bit of force here might have not been an issue, but Officer Mayberry repeatedly punched this inmate at least 13 times after she was already in the cell where higher-ups would draw the line. This would lead to an internal investigation into whether or not Mayberry was justified in using force once she was already secured inside. But possibly even worse is the case out of Winnipeg, Canada, where this Indigenous woman was not only physically assaulted but knocked unconscious by her officers. Garson was arrested on suspicion of public intoxication, and when 2 community safety officers asked her to remove a layer of clothing, she responded by throwing her belt. So in response, an officer punches her, renders her unconscious, while the other forcefully removes her trousers, despite clearly being unresponsive. They make no attempt to lift her properly. Instead, they dragged her into a cell and left her there without conducting any medical evaluation. Now, here's another case from July 27, 2018, involving a Parma mother named Lilia Mentina. Mentina was accused by police of using her cell phone to record video during a child visitation drop-off in the Parma PD's lobby with an ex-husband she had previously accused of abuse. Officers claimed the recording was unlawful and took her down to the station. However, during a pat-down, one female CO allegedly groped Mentina's breast, and when she reacted, this happened.
You understand? Sure.
All she did was react after being groped, but the officers acted like she was resisting and slammed her into a concrete wall. They would bring out a restraint chair, with an officer threatening to break her fingers.
Lean forward. Okay?
Open your fucking hand, I'm gonna break your finger.
Matina files a lawsuit against the city's police and those corrections officers, accusing them of using excessive force. But this next case goes beyond excessive force. It's outright torture. What you're seeing right here is a police officer using pepper spray on a woman who's clearly strapped in a restraint chair, posing no threat whatsoever. Yet she's pepper sprayed so much she began to suffocate. And keep in mind, this is the second time Swink was pepper sprayed in less than an hour. A move that directly violates jail protocol, especially considering she posed no actual threat. Swink got arrested after a response to a disturbance call finding her arguing with her ex-boyfriend. And she's handcuffed and taken to Montgomery County Jail for booking, where she's placed in a holding cell. Inside the cell, Swink began yelling and is pepper sprayed for the first time. Now, when officers go to use force on an inmate, they're required to record that using a handheld camera. In this case, there is no camera. And the only reason we can see this is that it's from the cell's fixed CCTV camera. Now, after being sprayed for the first time, Swink continued yelling, and that's when she's pepper sprayed a second time, where they just completely empty the can on her. Once again, no handheld camera here, and according to policy, when an inmate is sprayed to that extent, officers are required to check on him every 10 minutes. But at Montgomery County, Swink was left in there for hours, choking and suffocating due to the overwhelming concentration of the spray. After an unspecified amount of time, a jail medic is called in to check on her. By then, Swink is unconscious and unresponsive, and instead of removing her from the room and decontaminating her with water, the medic attempted to revive her using sternum rubs and other forms of physical stimulation. But as you can see here, that pepper spray was so intense that even the medic couldn't handle it and had to step out of the room for a few minutes. Yet, despite it all, Swink was left in there for hours, unconscious, restrained, and completely ignored by the officers. Hours later, they come back to wipe that pepper spray off her face, while she continued to feel its burning effects across her skin. Eventually, she's taken out of here and turned back into the general population without any further incident. But shortly after, Swink filed a lawsuit against the county jail, accusing them of using excessive force. The lawsuit clearly went in her favor. But you know, maybe what's worse is this next and final case involving a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran who was physically assaulted right inside her jail cell and even forcibly stripped of her clothes. Now, this went down on January 20th, 2017, when 28-year-old Zandria Askew was captured on surveillance screaming and struggling after LaSalle County Sheriff's deputies threw her to the floor of her cell. Askew was stopped by officers claiming that she was disoriented and confused, although Askew insisted she was simply feeling a bit ill. She's taken to jail in Ottawa, Illinois, where 5 additional officers forcibly drag her into a cell and deny her the right to post bail. From here, it takes a disturbing turn. Acting completely outside of protocol, the officers strip her of her clothes and humiliate her in front of their peers before leaving her on the cold cell floor for 12 hours. Afterwards, the deputies would try to delete their body cams, but fortunately, the cell's CCTV captured the entire incident. Askew later filed a $1 million federal lawsuit against the county. And just like many of the cases we've seen today, while she might get justice, we still have to ask ourselves, is justice really enough?